Hey, happy Friday. How's it going?
Happy Friday.
Welcome to Inside the Firm. I'm your co-host, Alex Gore, here with Lance Cayko, both of F9 Productions. Basically, this is just talk about Inside the Firm, architecture, entrepreneurship, development, all that.
Every once in a while, there's a joke.
There is a
Every
joke.
once in a while, somebody's throwing out a joke.
Yep, funny stuff. Let me adjust my mic here. Here we go. So what's up? You want to just dive right into it?
Yeah. What's on our list?
So first is best and worst advice from another professional.
Oh, wow. We're just getting it out of the way.
Exactly.
Let's do it. Let's knock this out.
Enoch Sears, Business of Architecture. He wrote in. We'll be on his podcast. We taped it, last Friday? But I don't think we'll be on for, a couple weeks or something?
Couple weeks, I don't think. But once we're on, give it a listen. And if you're not listening to Enoch at the moment, please go give him a listen. He does a great job.
Yeah, it was great stuff. So he doesn't really have any worse advice, but his best advice, and he goes, this is the quote. This one is easy. Learn to sell. Every one of us sells every day. Although we might not call it selling, it might be selling another person on an idea or a potential client on why your firm is better. If you master this skill, you can prosper. By the way, children's are excellent salespeople. My daughter gets practically anything she asks for. I didn't read that last line. That's hilarious.
That's awesome. That's exactly what I was thinking while you were reading that, where every day you sell.
Yeah.
Kaya, my youngest kid, I have 74, as everybody knows. No, I have 4.
74 kids.
But the youngest has, she wants to get her ears pierced. So she's trying to sell me for her birthday. So she's trying to sell me.
Okay, let's explore this just from a different angle, because that's interesting. It's a joke, but jokes always have some hint in reality. So is it just because they're your baby princess daughter, right? Because everyone knows that a lot of times if you have a girl, daddy's little girl, they're cute, they give you the eyes, they're sweet, they're nicer than boys. Is it that, or do they have a different perspective, of how they're trying to sell you? Is there anything that she does that's like, man, if Kyler would just sell me in this way, he'd probably get more success, but he doesn't, Or is it?
So you said that you stereotyped and said, oh, little girls are the nicest.
Yeah.
This one is not. This one can make all of the boys cry except for Kyler. I mean, she just makes them melt.
Kyler's probably just used to it.
Kyler's used to it. Yeah, he's grown up with her. So what she's doing as her sales tactic is she's being really nice. So doesn't that go to fundamental sales of a handshake and a smile and being gregarious and making people laugh and being funny and engaging in that sort of way, right?
Yeah. That's good. So at F9, we've always preached this. If you've listened to any of our previous podcasts, we think people miss out on the fundamentals so much. And if they just go back to the fundamentals, they could be more successful. So think about a child when they want to sell something. Oh, know what I used to do as a kid?
How did you sell, Al?
I would butter up the other adults. So Mrs. Hanson. So we'd want to sleep over at Andy's house. And Andy's like, I don't want to ask. They'll say no, whatever. So it was always my job to ask Mrs. Hanson if we could sleep over. So I just lay on the charm thick.
Yeah.
Mrs. Hanson, you're looking so beautiful today. And she knew it was coming, but I would still just pile it on.
Probably, but honestly, that was I bet if you sort of conditioned her to be ready for that answer or for that question. And then she was ready to go. I don't know. That's not a bad idea.
Honestly, I don't think there was a time I did not get a sleepover from Mrs. Hanson.
There you go.
How
were her cookies?
Oh, the best.
The best cookies.
The best cookies. Everything was.
Nice. Okay. Well, thanks for that, Enoch. If anybody else who is listening would like to send something in, we try to give a reminder every podcast. Just record yourself. It's really simple if you have an iPhone. I don't know how Android works. Probably the same. But just send us in your worst and best advice. If you don't have any worst advice, that's probably great. Tell us your best advice.
Yeah, or make up some worst advice.
We'll have you on the podcast.
Yeah. So next, let's dive into a project. You know what? I'll ask you this question because I think you know my answer. Excuse me. Have you ever had a project that's went through multiple iterations before establishing with the city what you can and cannot do?
Have I? No. It's always we've said we're going to do something. We go to the city and the city says no, and the client is forgiveful enough where they're like, okay, we're not going to fire you. Now redo this and we'll pay you still. So I don't know what you're going to say.
No, say that again. So you decided something.
Yeah.
You kind of drew it up. You went to the city. They said no.
Yeah,
and then
literally there's a house right now that I'm working on in Breck. in Breckenridge.
Yep.
And we first showed the city the plans. And honestly, I thought everything was okay because we didn't have occupiable space in the setback.
Yep.
So we only had a roof extending in the setback. Well, in Denver, you can do that all day long. Apparently, up in Breckenridge, you can't do that. I know, blew my mind.
Yep.
So we can't do that. So then he said, "Oh, I guess we have to move the house 15 feet to the south or something like that, because you can't even have like a deck that cantilevers out, which you can in Denver." So
yeah. But then it was just minor, and then you revised it, and then it was good. It was never like multiple iterations.
No, it was only So I haven't had that. That. I think you're the only one that's had that so far.
A couple of years ago, I was explaining to one of my non-architecture friends kind of how crazy it is, because not only do you have building codes, you have IRC for residential, you have IBC for commercial, then you have city municipal codes, which are literally just as big. They're 200, 300 pages.
And I think actually even more confusing, because it seems like there's more hidden stuff in there.
Yep. And then this is all on top of trying to glean out what the client wants, put that together in a competent design, and then also knowing building materials and systems to make it all work, and then coordinating with other people. So like it's a whole bunch of synthesis of a whole bunch of information. Then from city to city, you can have a bulk plane. And from Denver, my definition of how I understand bulk planes and how it does work in Denver and a lot of places is that it's basically from the sides. The sides you go up, let's say
sides of the site or the sides of the setbacks?
Sides of the site.
Okay.
Let's just say 17 feet. Then you go in at a 45-degree angle, and then you have a top bulk plane of like 35 feet height, right? Well, in Frisco, they're talking about bulk planes, but it's from the front property line you go up, and then you go back towards the rear property at 45. So it's like, same terminology, totally different. So I've had a project, and what's difficult is these codes are so big that I was working with a developer who actually knew the codes, but then was trying to push some of the codes. And even I think cities, they're so weird too. They're so weird because sometimes they can be very rational, sometimes they can't. And this developer really knew the codes and said we could do this, this, and this. And then I was like, okay, so I'll draw it like that because it was given directions. And then the city would say no. And then we had to do it again. This, and this. And then the city would say no. So now we're on kind of our third totally different design.
And I mean completely different, right? To the point where
different.
To the point, I mean, so when you first started out, what was it? Wasn't it just a house, or was it the 3 houses? No.
So what it was platform design, which means basically there's parking underneath and then like a concrete 3-hour platform. And then we had condos. We had 3 buildings on top. And then they were horizontally stacked, so that we had, in those 3 buildings, we had 2 units on. Mm-hmm. And we went basically to almost a DD set by then. I think what would have happened is that we would have had to lose a unit. Or I can't remember why we...
Is what the city said.
No, the city actually just wasn't going to approve it whatsoever. They said no. They just said no.
And then the second iteration.
The second iteration, we have a historical house, so we have to go around
on the existing site that you have to save, right?
Yep. So we have to go around these in
and didn't the planner live in the house before that? So it was kind of like wasn't it kind of like a conflict of interest?
I think one of them. I don't know if that same planner is on it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyways, the second one, we basically just put an alleyway down the center, and then we had vertical townhomes. And then, I think we had 6 of them lining a center street. And the city said,
no bueno. How far did you take that?
Not as far. More quicker. I was like, let's just get this study
and
out.
have a meeting with the city.
With the city. This third one.
Now, were the first 2 directed also by the client?
Yes.
Okay. What happened on the third one?
Back to platform, attach it to the historical house so that you don't have to be like 10 or 15 foot away. And then...
You guys are attaching this?
Yeah.
This shows how much I know about what's going on in my own firm.
Do you want to know what attaching means? We're putting a concrete wall right next to the exterior wall.
Oh, no. I wasn't thinking anything different.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I figured you'd have to separate the 2, right? With like a firewall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's weird, like, we're not really attaching it, but that's we're attaching.
Yeah, it's not like you could walk from one to the other.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
So parking underneath.
Now, who dictated the third option? Combination or more you?
Combination.
Okay.
Combination. And then this one was a little bit more clear too, because the other one actually, the first one we couldn't do, where we had six big units with like three bedrooms in each, was we were asking for a parking reduction. So like the density, we just went way above the density. And we were just trying to get it.
I see.
That just wasn't gonna wasn't gonna work. This one is now it's 4 units on top. So the other one was 6 units. This one's 4 units on top, and it's in one building. So the 4 units are all touching.
Going through that whole process, then, what kind of advice would you give another architect, another developer, anybody who's looking to do something like that from the get-go to avoid, because tens of thousands of dollars were essentially wasted by going through all of those design studies, right? So
there's a caveat. So yeah, from our perspective, the architecture perspective, and this is hard advice to take because you and me, we work in so many different jurisdiction. So if you want concrete advice, it'd be whatever project you're having, please read the whole 200 pages and understand their whole code. Is that gonna, come on? How are you gonna? Is that really gonna happen? Especially when it's a potential project, and then they ask you for a quick turnaround, and then they actually do kind of know the code. So it's like, okay, also give me 2 weeks to read this all, and then understand what it's all saying, and then know all the nuances of this without actually, So that's kind of crazy. That's kind of crazy. And then 2, at least with the first one, they were trying to get a more denser. They were going to make more money. So they just gambled away that, let's say $20,000. So it was a gamble, and I think they knew it on their part.
Oh, okay.
So, and we got paid for it, and there's no bad feelings. We're actually doing another huge project with them. I think they're actually great clients.
Yeah.
So maybe the lesson is know that it's a process.
And know that, and be okay with the fact that it's going to go in and fail. And that you would redo it?
Yeah, and the only thing I would say is that if you know that they're doing something that isn't going to work, then you need to tell them. But what we knew, we're not going to meet the parking standards, but we're going in showing them, asking this if they can reduce the parking standards.
Yeah.
So everyone was aware of what was going on.
Yeah.
No one was in the dark. It wasn't like I had some information was hiding from them.
So for you, it was so really what it boils down to is just be completely honest in saying that we can try this, we can try to do this, but I don't believe there's going to be a good chance it's gonna happen. And if you're okay with that, I'm okay with that.
Exactly.
Perfect.
And instead of
I've been telling client after client that lately in Denver who wants to go for a variance. And I'm like, we've only had one project get a variance, and it was because of X, X, and X.
Yeah, and it was because of the story, the people, the lot was weird.
We had to attach an emotional story to the whole thing. It was crazy.
But with some of these developers, I think it's okay you saying that and then being okay going with it, because they might see if we get this to work, it's 2 more units. That's $300,000 each. That's $600,000. I'm wagering $20,000 for $600.
Right, because that's the terms they're thinking in 100%.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool.
So, I got a question for you.
What's up?
A lot of people are always thinking about how to have extra streams of income. And our advice, too, is also maybe have those extra streams of income before you even start your own business or something like that. Or, even if you have your own business, how can you kind of expand other than just architecture?
I think one of the ways to find that new stream of income is to identify a problem and see if you have a solution for it.
Okay.
So, do you remember when we first started trying to hire people? Our big problem was we were looking for people. We were trying to get them from the local university here in Boulder, and what happened?
They didn't have skills.
They didn't have. They had skills that were not that. They had pretty good design skills, but as far as being able to just jump in and go right into Revit and be production, didn't have it.
They could not produce. We could not just say, "Hey, welcome to our firm. Sit down and work in Revit." And it's not. I don't think you should expect that out of your I don't think firms should expect that you don't have to train someone, because every time, even if they have Revit experience, unless you've literally went through our course, we just hired 2 new people. One person not only went through our course, was also a TA for our course, and then has been working, on the side during school. So he'll be fine because he's done it. But the other person, we actually paid for him to go through all of our tutorials, do all the work.
Even though this guy, his dad is a co-owner of a big firm in Denver, and he has worked in Revit for, I think, 3 or 4 years now. Yeah. We still had him go back and train our way. And then actually, even when we went to kind of do our final interview with him and give him a job offer last week, he said, "Hey, thanks for kind of retraining me, because that was a good refresher, and I feel like I know how you guys want to do things."
Yep. Even if you're in a big firm or medium firm, it doesn't matter. If you're moving from one firm for another, I think they all should have their own training set up. I think it should be clear, because the BIM manager or the architect, or sometimes it's dictated by contractors where dimensions they want them pulled from, all that. Instead of them having to guess, why not spend the first 2 days having them go through it and say, this is how we do everything? Just that clarity of mind releases so much tension and anxiety from them making decisions that I think it's worth tenfold what you
100%. And I know, and I understand how hard it is to say, well, we're going to trade him or her for a week, spend that money up front, when we'd rather, we need them. We literally hired you because we are suffocating. We need you to jump. But just if you can discipline yourself to spend that extra time, oh my gosh, dividends, right? So back to where we were.
I can't. I'm still tangent. Because you have to think long term. I think this is great advice and great topic starting point. 2, I remember I worked for a nursing home of just giving people their food and making their food, and it was a whole 2 weeks of training that they paid for.
Holy cow!
And it is not as advanced as architecture or Revit or anything like that. So know that other professionals companies do this. I know big firms like Deloitte, all those people. IBM, they all do it. I don't know about IBM.
Maybe.
But Lance, how would you? Let's say someone's listening to this and they're like, "Hey, that's a great idea. How do they do it?"
How do they train somebody?
Yep. What?
But if are they an architect? Is that what you're asking?
They're an architect. They know how they want their standards. How do they literally set it up?
Well, honestly, I would do it like the way we do it. So what we have done is we put together a video tutorial series, and so ours might be. But the reason why we were able to do it is because we also teach Revit to the architecture and engineering students at CU Boulder.
Yep.
So we were getting paid sort of to do that anyway, and then we just folded it into our firm, and now it's kind of like this cohesive thing that happens for us. But if you don't have that kind of time and you don't have that, you're not going to be able to get paid to actually go through and model things for the people that are working for you. What Alex has been doing lately, which is great, is just walking through a set of red lines with somebody in a video format. And then, so he'll do the red lines, and then he will just walk through and say, hey, here's why I redlined it this way, and here's what we're trying to think of. And then, he'll jump to a next page and go, see, this is why this is why this mattered for this, and here's what we're trying to set up. So even if you walk through, I think, a set of red lines with somebody like that, or I think there's also the baby stepping people through things. So I think you can do it also as a hybrid, right?
Yep.
So where you say, let's say you have a brand new house for somebody to draw, or maybe it's even like a redraft of something like that, right?
Yep.
If you start for just fundamental basics first and just say, okay, all we're worried about is the floor plans for now, and here's how I want them dimensioned. And let's say they get a few things wrong, then make the video, show them the red lines, and have them get back to you with that, and just go back and forth and keep building them up from the ground up.
Yep.
That would be my idea.
So
what was your idea?
I actually thought you were going to go way simpler, and I thought this was going to be a very short little segment. Basically, I was going to say you can buy a software. It's called, the one we use is Screencast-O-Matic. Was it $50 maybe? I don't even know.
Oh, I think it was even less than that.
I think it was like $12.99 maybe. So Screencast-O-Matic, and basically do a project. So start, what we've done is a little cabin, and we've walked them through this whole thing. But honestly, I thought this was going to be easy advice and just do it. But I thought that's a lot of work, actually. Like, that's a lot of work to
put together the cabin,
the whole cabin.
That's what I'm saying. So
but I'm getting into a little segue here. So we did a whole cabin, then we did all these different family types, from little small generic ones to parametric ones to advanced structural families to how to make a window to how to make a door. Then over the years, we've gathered an option one, how to do options, common questions. Like, we've just developed all these videos over the years.
There's even 4 that I put together to where we've been turning guys loose on saying, like, if we get a new house, a lot of times I will just kind of sit down with them and say, hey, here's the general direction of where we're trying to take it. Maybe I'll have a sketch for them. Maybe we'll have like a floor plan from the internet that's similar, and turn them loose. And I'll say, run until you get to where you think a DD set is. Then I have 4 videos up on the server that are called From DD to CD. Yep. And it shows literally what I would do as the principal, looking through the model from the first time and going through it.
Do you get where I'm going with this? So we sell these. This was not my purpose in the beginning, but I just realized how much work this actually is. If you go to revitfurniture.com, and then you look at, know what, Lance, pull it up so I can get them to the right thing. revitfurniture.com.
Okay.
Not only do we sell the template, and this is a template that we've honed over the years so that everyone is consistent, everyone's working off the same thing, all the families are loaded. Not only do we have then a bunch of multiple different families that you can plug in, and the template's set up so that you can tag things. All those are working. All their sheets are set up. But I think the real benefit of this, if you go to revitfurniture.com and then click on packages, it's basically our platform packages. You can see everything that comes in it. And what we don't highlight, and maybe should highlight more, is that you get access to basically a tab, and then you get a password, and it gets all these training videos for you. So it's basically 5 weeks of courses. It doesn't take that long, but it's basically broken up into the families, into the Revit projects, and then in the end, all this miscellaneous stuff. So if you don't have the time, or if you want to get your firm structured, this is honestly a great value and great resource for you. So,
or make your own videos.
Or make your own videos. Greencastle-matic, $12 maybe, something like that. You can do it either way. Okay.
Back to where we originally started though with this little segment was how do you get multiple streams of income, right? So for us, we identify the problem of, hey, we want to hire people. We really can't hire people because we don't feel like they're qualified yet. Okay, why aren't they qualified? Maybe because we think they aren't being taught this certain skill in the correct way. So we see the problem. We think we're the solution. So what Alex did when that happened, I think it was the day after we had went through maybe 5 or 6 interviews with people, and we just weren't seeing what we needed to see. Alex said, "Well, how about I just email CU and see if we could teach Revit."
Yep.
And I think within a day or two, he got an email back and said, "Well, you can't teach Revit to the architect students, but you can teach Revit to the engineering students. Would you guys be interested in that?" And we said, "Sure."
Yep, and actually, I just said, "Hey, can we come in and talk to you and see how we can help out?" That's all I said. I said we're a local
in the initial
firm.
email.
Yep,
absolutely. It's very, very innocent. Nothing like, you couldn't see any veiled want behind it.
No, and honestly, we didn't even know. We were just like, God, we got to help these people out because, or else we won't get good employees. And then they said, nope, but go over and teach the engineers. And now we're teaching the architects and the engineers. So it's all good. So basically, where this question is leading is that not only what problem, but what skill do you have? And then can you translate that into university work? So let's say you're a skyscraper architect or a hospital architect. Like, that's your main area of focus. Residential, commercial buildings,
maybe
civic centers.
Maybe you're really good at specs. Maybe you're good at lead. Maybe
stadiums.
You see where you're like
hockey arenas.
Some kind of specialty skill, right?
Yep. And what I would do is just email the university and say, hey, I've done a bunch of, or worked on a bunch of hockey arenas. Could we set up a possible elective course where it's called, designing hockey arenas or stadiums, and then see how many people sign up. And if enough people sign up, which normally the threshold is only about 12, then they pull the course, and you could be a teacher and you could be making some cash on the side. And that's how I'd approach it. I think it'd be cool if at our university you had 3 or 4 electives and it was from people practicing, and it was either...
Look, Frank Gehry just started his whole online webinar, or like web courses, right? Yeah. And I think we're suggesting the same thing. So that's how we teach our courses. That's how we're able to run a firm, still have a life, and be able to teach at the university level too. Is half of our class is basically online because we've sort of automated it from the standpoint of of having the videos up and the content in that way, right? We still go into lecture and we still go in and do hands-on stuff. But if you can, Frank Gary's doing it, obviously. He's doing it. Everything's recorded. Like, you're not getting live Frank Gary when you take his online course that he just came out with, I think, like last two months ago.
Yep. So, again, going back to Enoch, we were just on his podcast, and this thought just hit us, and like, why aren't you teaching the business of architecture in universities? And I think people think, like, you have to only teach their specific course, which would be professional practice, right? But professional practice is just more a lot about the structure. So just find what you're good at. And it could even be, think about some of our buddies who are really good at visualizations or drawing or something like that. It could just be
rendering. I just want to teach a course in architectural rendering.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can and you can automate the heck out of that for sure. You could, you could just record yourself working and showing them how they're setting stuff up. Piece of cake.
Or honestly, I think some kids would get nerdy on this. Red lines and details for architects. Just that class from a guy who knows it and does it. And basically what you could do if your firm allowed it, you could maybe, instead of doing the whole project, you could take red lines of 2 pages of one project and maybe grab that model and say, execute them. And then go over it. Do you see why we did that? Do you see why we did that? Do you see what this is? Like, that'd be great.
Everybody has something to give if they're a practicing architect, I think, in that way, for sure.
And if you're a firm of like 4 to 6 people, or 8 or 10 or 12, or even a big firm, I don't think you don't need to be the principal to do it, but propose that idea to them and say they might be open to it. It's giving more exposure to your firm. Here's the other side benefit. This is what we do. Our best students become our TAs, and literally just yesterday, our best TAs now just become our employees.
And you know what? I've brought this up to multiple. So I just interviewed with an interior design firm down in Denver. They do awesome work. They claim that they actually have the biggest interior design project in Denver right now, residential wise. That aside, then they said, well, how do you get employees? Get employees. How do you recruit them? And I go, we teach at CU, and here's the method we do. And they I mean, I just watch their mouths just drop, and they go, that's genius.
Yeah.
Wow, then they are just ready to go. They're like, that's the problem that's the problem we have when we hire people right out of school is then you're sort of training them as you go. I'm like, yeah, it's perfect. Works perfect.
So do that.
Yeah.
So are you pausing it?
I have to pause because low battery, but I think, okay, so just tell everybody, give everybody a plan of action. What would you recommend people do if they say, wow, that's a great idea. I would love to try to teach architectural rendering. What should they do?
Find out what your skill is. Email the dean of the university just saying, hey.
The dean of the college.
Of the college. Like, not the whole university. And say, hey, my name is, whatever. I'm a part of this firm. We're really good at this. We think students might like it. We'd love to help out. Is there any way I could come in and talk to you about it?
Come in and talk to you.
Yep, that's
perfect. Okay.
And we're back, even though you probably didn't even see any break. That's the magic of Land Cayko. So that's sort of our advice or talking points for one stream to get differentiate your income and get more coming in. Now let's talk about development talk. So our other stream, we're becoming developers. I don't think we've talked about it in a while. So the new update on that is we just had a neighborhood meeting. I'm going to record. I'm going to go over what I presented and basically recreate the neighborhood meeting and then put that on InsideTheFirm.com. It'll probably be on YouTube too.
InsideTheFirmPodcast.com.
Yep, podcast.com. But as a general overview, what we did and how it worked is that I started out with a slide that's basically just said Mark 1. And Mark 1 is for cameras, and for a lot of developments, it's the first iteration. So I went over our past, and our past is pertinent to this discussion because it leads into what we want to do in the future. So just some of our residential projects, what was cool or unique about it, our big townhome project that we've done, and then some of our building projects, basically the tiny houses. And I think I went into the past where I was in the Army in construction, master of construction management. Lance has done construction since he was 4 years old.
He just said that to see if I was paying attention. I was looking away.
Yeah. and then
yes, 4.5.
How some of the projects that we do are unique in the sustainable arena, not in that they're lead, but that they're solving the fundamental elemental elements. So light, collect heat, solar panels, orientation, capturing actually water and growing things. So that's Mark 1. And then the idea is that what we're doing now is Mark 2, right? So it's all the lessons learned before and then how we're going to apply them. So not only our firm is structured the way it needs to be, the design, everything we learned from permitting, everything we learned about saving money, but yet then using that money for to make maybe bigger windows for better views. And then not wasting money on stupid construction details that don't really work, or that we can, instead of moving the foundation, which costs us a lot of money, we can just maybe do some pop-outs, things like that. So then I went into what the project was, basically showed them the site, showed them some 3D views, talked about how we are going to be sustainable, linked back to those past ideas, how we're going to have like bifacial solar panels that will capture the light. We'll have a great up yard. Basically, I went through each of the levels, and we're going to do some really cool things on the inside too. So if you have the time, the presentation that I'll put together will probably only be 8 minutes and 34 seconds exactly. I'm going to try to hit that.
Yeah.
So some of the cool stuff, and then showing, ending kind of on a motion on the up yard, which is what our sky deck is going to be called. Lance came up with that. It was his first good idea that he's ever had, so I was really proud of him.
Yeah.
As we've been friends for a long time.
I've been waiting for my cookies.
Yeah. But you have to have at least you get 3 good ideas, you get cookies. Everyone knows this. And then ended on like a gorgeous view, a gas fireplace, all that stuff.
So, and then from there, we took questions. We obviously, opened up the floor for questions from the audience. So, here's some questions I think that's how you're going to these meetings to be prepared for. And they're ones that we've thought about on other projects, but we weren't immediately ready to answer them on this project. But here we go. So, one guy asked, "Where would the snow go?" And so. Really good point. Because when there was the group home project that I've been working on, we had facilities management. The people who were going to basically manage the facilities of this group home were there at the design meeting with us, and that's one of the questions they asked. So practical stuff gets asked right away, right? What else?
And know what I want to say if the city brings that up? What? Because in Minnesota they just pile it up, and you're going down streets, and in the boulevards it's up like 4 or 5 feet. So we have a 20-foot setback. Like it's going in that 20-foot setback. That's where it's going. Know
that again, you are presenting to the general public, and they aren't trained like us, right? So they can't just digest like a floor plan or a site plan as easily as we can. So trying to be really clear about that is paramount, and knowing that you're going to have to like keep your patience, and you're going to have to go back in a slide and explain again, like, oh, the left side is this, the right side is this. Here's where the drive aisle is. Like I'm not saying you dumb it down. I'm just saying keep your patience and your poise, because you're going to have to ask those questions. And although you might think they're stupid questions, they're not, because they don't swim in it every day.
Exactly.
Yeah. So overall, the community, there was only a couple community members there. They were actually neighbors of our property, which made sense.
And they're neighbors, and they were the head of the HOAs. So they were representing, I don't know, one was probably only representing 40 people, one was representing 100 people.
Yep. They ended up, they're awesome people. We got a couple cards. The old guy actually gave like my fiance a hug. It was funny. Yeah. But what was cool is that they had a positive response, and then the neighbor to the west was even talking about partnering with us on like getting rid of this tree and other things like that. They just want to make sure that we're not devaluing their land, and obviously we don't want them to devalue what we're doing, right?
And the snow question was kind of cool, because he says, we dump our snow on your property.
Yeah.
So, and he goes, but I bring that, he goes, what kind of fence are you going to have up to our property? And we go, oh, a cedar fence. He goes, well, just to let you know, our snowplow does go down that side, and it might wreck the fence. So now we're thinking about the first 2 or 3 feet, maybe having concrete or block. He's like, yeah, so that would help out. So he was literally trying to help us out, which was great.
Yeah, there were some other questions like how would the residents access the garage? Alex had to go back and explain the site plan. How would we allow pets? That's something we actually hadn't even thought about. And then asked about exterior materials. We had to kind of explain the exterior materials we're thinking about. And then again, that tree. But the only thing that really threw us for a loop that kind of scared the crap out of us was a setback question. And this came from the city planner.
Well, it actually came to the neighbor. He goes, how tall is your building? And we said it's 30 feet. And he goes, well, how far back is it? And it's something like 8 foot back. And the city planner goes, well, actually, it needs to be for every 2.5 feet in height, it needs to be 1 foot back. So it'd have to be, or just 2 feet. 2.5. So it'd have to be 12 foot. 12 foot or 12 foot in. I think just 12 foot is the math, right? Mm-hmm. And the alarm bells. Like, I kept my cool and went back to the office and figured it out. And I'm like, holy cow, like, this is gonna.
You went back to your house and figured it out.
Yeah, that's
because
true.
It could have been a project killer.
Yep, this is gonna ruin everything. And then I even went back. So when we had our first initial meeting, they talked about all the setbacks, but the one that was in question. So like, I had confirmed all the other setbacks, but this one. And in my drawings that I had up at the neighborhood meeting, we have a 5 foot, not a 12 foot. So then I had to go through the code, and basically he was referencing the residential code for setbacks. And then I said, oh, okay, the commercial code is 5. And it is an honest mistake too, because we're doing residential units in a commercial setting, but we still go by the commercial setbacks.
Yes.
So then I wrote the city planner an email, pointed out the residential, pointed out commercials, and then said, we think that it's 5 foot. And just to confirm, here are all of our other setbacks. And he goes, I'm so sorry. You are correct. Yes, I was mistaken. Those are the setbacks. so I mean, it just took me, I just freaked out a little bit. But it's better. I was just so relieved that we didn't have to, kill our project or just totally redesign everything. That people make mistakes.
Yeah. So if you're interested in seeing,
and now I'm really confident in all of our setbacks, and he knows he shouldn't have a question about the setbacks either. It should be like a faster review. Like, oh yeah, we already talked about this.
Yep. So if you are interested in checking out what Alex presented to the city, I would encourage you to go to InsideTheFirmPodcast.com. Check out the video that he's going to put up. I think we'll probably put it up today with today's podcast.
Yeah, I'll do it right after this podcast.
Awesome. So check it out. And then we have a 10%. Is it a 10%? Is that what you're calling it?
Yeah, success fee.
A 10% success fee. So what the heck is that?
Exactly. Has any of you ever encountered this, either in architecture or in maybe something else where you have to produce something and deliver?
Maybe you're a landscaper. I don't know. Maybe you're anything. Like anything where you're you're doing a job and you have to finish it, right?
Yeah. So we're working on negotiating a huge contract.
Huge for us.
Yep. And they said, hey, by the way, here's our comments. And one of the comments was there will be withheld a 10% success fee. Meaning until we get the permit, the actual permit, 10% will be held back. And these are large dollars, so it's a large dollar amount. So Lance, and we don't like that. We don't like
it because we've done it before on one other project. And every time I see that bill, that is, we're not going to bill it this time, so then it doesn't drive Lance nuts, and he sees it and sees that it's overdue, right?
Yeah.
We're just going to withhold that. But it drives me insane that we did that. But we have to do it again.
Yep. So then we're thinking, okay, what do we do? Because we're literally loaning them a substantial amount of money for however long it takes the city.
And we're not a bank.
We're not a bank. And then also you can't, everyone knows from city to city, it changes how competent they are. Even if it's the same city, you might get a different planner. You just don't know. You just don't know.
There's so many unknowns.
Yep. So we asked the Andre Architect group community, and they had some answers. They had some perspective.
Answers, yeah. So I asked, hey, has anyone had the experience where 10% of final payment on a contract is withheld until the building permit is issued? If you've seen this, how have you dealt with it? And here were some of the answers. So some of the answers were just kind of reactions. One answer was, and we already thought this too, was, well, they're probably safeguarding themselves. Like the client is safeguarding themselves because maybe they've had another architect just completely drag their feet after they get comments back, or just walk away from the project, or who knows, right? And especially if you're a big developer who deals with 5-6 architects and is doing 10 projects, that's going to happen. So then they just apply that to everyone because that's what. Yep. So I politely agreed and all that. And then the second person said it's generally a sign of mistrust. So like giant red flag for this guy. And then he said, charge 110% of your typical fee, and then that way if you never get paid for that 10%, who cares?
Yep. Yeah, but the contractor was already out. This was comments back.
Exactly. So for us, that didn't work either, right?
Yep.
And then there was another comment I honestly just did not understand at all. Won't even get into it. Let's see here. And then another person said, "This is not unusual for the work we do." So apparently, and this was for a what he said was. This is not unusual for the work that we do, but it is usually at the end of the project, and it deals with final certification by the state. We do schools, and there's a bunch of paperwork at the end that has to be filed with the state architect's office. So we don't do schools yet, and so we didn't. We're like, oh, well, maybe that's interesting. That's like at a higher level, right? Like a federal or state level.
And it's also not uncommon for contractors. There's normally retainage, so contractors deal with this all the time.
And you're learning that because you just went through CDS.
Exactly. So okay, you do it to the contractor. You hold their feet to the fire. This big developer. Someone may have dragged their feet and they got burnt, so it's just a policy. So I'm not taking it as a red flag.
No, me either. I think the first assessment is right. Is that all the contracts ideally have to be fair for everybody, right? Like nobody wants to get burnt. Everybody wants to be covered. Yep. So, and there was another guy who said yes is working as a consultant on a multinational contractor. He was shocked, but it happens. And then let's see here. He said, and then another guy. And I think this was the best. This was the best advice. That's exactly what we do, except I have a time caveat with it. It's usually 45 days from submittal of drawings for permit for submittal of final drawings to client. This way, if they decide not to build and never actually get a permit, I still get paid. I work on about 30% profit margin, so I can leave the 10% carrot out there to keep the client feeling good and they have some leverage. And if I get screwed, it's not that big of a deal. So I immediately text that to Alex.
Yep. So we think that's a great idea. Just saying, hey,
we think that's the best. That's the best idea.
But we did something else too, because we didn't want to come back to them and say, okay, pay us 2% more for us loaning you this money, because that might put a really bad taste in their mouth, saying all the other architects are doing this. Why are you guys being...
Well, that was my initial idea, and I think it was a bad idea in hindsight. My initial idea was, fine, if they're going to treat us like a bank, we're going to be like a bank, and we're going to charge them interest.
Yep. So the other thing we did is in the response, we said, hey, that's absolutely fine, but we would like to ask for something. And what we'd like to ask for, instead of a 10% down payment, could we have a 15% down payment? And then the 10% success fee still applies. So we're just getting some more of our cash a little bit earlier, which will ease the sting of some of it coming later. And really, we're getting that money at a crucial time when we're hiring and all that stuff. So we thought that was fair, because it's not actually charging them any more money. It's just some of it comes a little bit quicker. That's it. I thought that was nice.
Yep.
I thought it was.
Yep. Yeah. And then the caveat at the end is that we try to include a clause like that to where like it's still fair.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you know what? We'll give you an update on how that goes, because we are still in negotiations. So other than that, stay tuned. Next week we'll have a great podcast.
If you haven't already, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, email us with any comments or questions.
AKG at f9productions.com.
And we will see you next week.
Have a great weekend.